Darryll, what's up, man? Welcome to Dad. No. We were just talking about voice lessons before we even hit record.
And you're already messing up. I'm gonna get Roger on you, man.
I'm telling you, dude, I'm already messing up. Welcome to Dad Edge. There, I did take hooked on Pahonics. Pahonics, isn't that how you say it? Pahonics back in the
Something like that.
Yeah, man. Hey, seriously, man, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you on. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, man. So before we get started, let's talk about little Darryll. Actually, was there ever a little Darryll? You're like a big dude, man.
Yes, I'm 6'5" and probably about 270 pounds still. It's actually fat now. It's not muscle. It used to be muscle. But yeah, man, so funny because one of my nicknames is Little Darryll because my father's name is Darryll, and this is Dad podcast, right? So this is the dumb things fathers do. So my dad wanted me to be named after him, but he didn't want me to be a junior.
Interesting.
Let that sink, right? How does that happen?
Man.
So my name is Darryll, his name's Darryll, but he spelled mine differently. So they couldn't call me Darryll Jr.
Okay.
So they called me Little Darryll.
How old are you?
I am, I got to tell the truth on the podcast. I'm 31.
You're
telling everybody I'm 27.
I'm going to ask you a question. And
Go for it.
I know you're going to probably tell me no, and I'm going to be the one that feels old. And that is, do you know what the Bob Newhart show was?
No. Oh, is this the show that's like Darryll and my other brother Darryll?
Yes.
Oh, so see, I only know because I get that joke all the time.
Well, I'm Larry, and this is my brother Darryll.
There we go.
Other brother Darryll.
There we go.
What?
There we go. Full transparency, I think it's the lamest joke ever. But everyone says it, so I got to force myself to laugh because I'm extremely rude. And maybe it'll be funny if I actually watch the show. I haven't watched the show.
I wasn't a big fan. Yeah, I was a little kid. I'm 45. And I know, don't tell me I don't look a day over 44. I appreciate that.
You don't, dude. You look young, man. I would have guessed about 39.
Drink lots of water. And you're my new best friend, by the way. Lots of water, healthy foods, work out,
Yeah.
Married to a beautiful woman. I do have 4 boys, which I'm actually shocked. I don't have hardly any gray hair on my head. And I actually have a full head of hair. And I don't even know how that's possible with 4 boys. So you got 3 girls, you understand. Like,
yeah, I'll trade you one. I'm just kidding. Bad joke.
My wife would love that, actually. She's like, I know exactly the one I would give up. So
really, my wife hates when I say that. She's like, Darryll, don't say that. I'm like, I have to way serious now.
That's all right.
I stopped telling people 3 strikes and I'm out because they're like, that's not a strike, dude. It's a home run. I'm like, it is a home run. I get it.
These are more dad jokes. I'm feeling it. All right, man. So let's talk about you growing up.
Okay.
What was it like with your own father growing up, siblings, relationship with your parents? Like, what was your upbringing like?
Terrible. My mother got pregnant with me when she was in high school. My dad was a freshman in college. My mom was a senior in high school. That was a year after they lost my brother to birth complications. He was alive for a few days and he had an asthma attack and he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
So the way that I came into this world is that my mother was still going through a lot of healing from losing my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And her and my dad were kind of split. My dad was a star athlete at Central Michigan University, freak of nature. And he was kind of doing his thing, not really being faithful to her. And she lied to him, that she got pregnant. So then he had sex without protection. Is that okay? Is this okay? Okay.
Yeah, this is called Dad Edge, man.
This is PG rated. I need to slow down. Okay. So he had sex with my mother without protection, and then she real life got pregnant. So kind of tricked her into it, but that's how I came into the world. And so he was really caught up in sports and didn't really know how to be a father, and so wasn't in my life a lot. My mom followed him, went to college. Where he went to college, I had to try to make something happen. And my dad, I was kind of like the little buddy that kind of came around, but he wasn't really fathering me because he was all caught up in sports and just being a very popular person. And then, kind of long story short, he ended up getting hurt, blew out his knee, trying to play basketball like an idiot. And that was the end of his career path to the NFL, literally found out and had an NFL letter from every NFL team. And that's how he found out. And so then he had all this back child support for that was 4 years that he was in college that he had never paid. and and I say the next 5 years of my life from like 1 to 6 was all custody fights of how much can dad keep me to pay less and how much does dad owe, and he's paying child support and helping with school clothes. On top of that, I have two sisters from my mother's side, and their father's not in their life at all. So my mother supported me on my dad's small child support check that he was able to pay from working at Art Van, a furniture business. So financially, we were very poor, and money was always an issue. It was always trying to figure out how we're going to pay for Daryl's school clothes. I was growing like a freaking weed. so, so every time they bought me new school clothes, I would outgrow them 6 months later. And so that was always a hassle. So literally, my mom just said, forget it, and started buying stuff 2 sizes too big. So on the first day of school, when everyone goes to school and they got their new stuff on, look all amazing. I've got like super big t-shirts and like a shoe that's a size too big. I got to put tissue in the front of it just to go in school because they can't keep affording to buy me new things. So that was my life, man, was going back and forth between the custody battle. Mom hates dad, dad hates mom. They were never together. I didn't have traditionally like sit down at family. I had to grow up a lot sooner, which is why I look with this hat on. I look my age. But if I take it off, you see this hairline, you might be like, oh, sure you're not 45. So I had to grow up and take care of my sisters at a young age to help my mom out while she worked. And yeah, that was my life, man. Grew up real fast and got a lot of wisdom real young.
Wow. So, well, first of all, I mean, you know, your excuse or your explanation of showing up to class, with the baggy clothes, you'd be like, you know what, just give me a month. I'll be filling this thing out. So
Yeah,
all good. So,
nah, I didn't have that. I didn't have that swag then, man.
yeah.
I was super insecure as a kid, man. I thought something was wrong with me because I got teased for being the black kid that quote unquote talks and acts white.
I saw that.
And so just thought that something was wrong with me. So literally changed everything about me to fit in with this black community. I literally got rid of all my white friends, pretended that I didn't know them, and then started living this whole street life. So
But
everything was a persona.
you were even like honors classes and all that good stuff, right?
I was an all-A student. I was the
All-A
smartest kid in the
student.
class. I was a super nerd. Everybody cheated off my tests. I was a kid that came home and like did his homework before he ever went out and played. And then when I wanted to fit in with this other crowd of people, that's when I just said, forget all those values and morals and disciplines, and let's just live wild and create havoc.
I watched your TED Talk on rejection, and it was amazingly enlightening and very well timed, by the way, too. It was just some things going on in my life that I really needed to see that when I saw it.
That's awesome.
And I got to tell you, man, like, so you talk about this rejection being more projection from others, maybe going through something, and then they see someone else as a target, and it doesn't really necessarily decrease our value. I don't want to ruin it, but I am.
Go for it, man.
I should just let you talk about it.
No, this is good. This actually validates all of my insecurity. I'm like, yeah, somebody listened and retained.
It does, man. I'm telling you, like I just had on Chris Gardner. Do you know who Chris Gardner is?
I do.
Pursuit
I know of him.
Yeah. So he said this one quote in the show, and it said, "Karma has GPS." And I love that quote. And I got to tell you, like I said, kind of going through something as we speak right now. And I was just like, I saw the TED Talk, and I was getting ready for our interview, and I watched that, and I was like, wow, that's unreal. And I want you to talk about that for a minute, about rejection. Every man listening to this podcast, without a shadow of a doubt, has dealt with rejection, is dealing with rejection. And to be honest, it's like this. It's the number one fear that Tony Robbins always talks about, right? Is that we're not enough. We're not enough. And so there's that always, that it's like that underlying fear is always there, just kind of hiding in the shadows just a little bit. And then when something happens, it's like, see, proof, right? Yeah. But talk to us about that. And I also want you to intertwine your story into that too.
Dang, no problem.
It's a tall order, man.
Just kill it, Darryll. Anyway, bring it. Rejection, man, is one of those things that's a really ugly word. No one wants to experience rejection, but we all have to face it.
Yeah.
The TEDx talk theory was that it's actually something that we should embrace rather than avoid.
Mhm.
It actually is a great life lesson and a catalyst to success versus this ugly emotional thing that we should just run from. The reason why a lot of men don't like to deal with rejection, no one likes it, but men in particular, is because we live off of affirmation. We want to be head macho man, and and rejection at its core makes you feel like you're not good enough to be liked or loved by other people. Okay. And there's this thing a lot of times when I say to men, like, um, are you afraid of rejection? Nobody, I never heard had a guy go, absolutely. Okay. But here's the thing. I've heard people say that they are prideful. So I'm like, man, have you struggled with pride? And they're like, yeah. Yes. With the deep man voice, you know? And I say, okay, I believe that pride is just a mask, kind of like an outer shell that we put on so that we don't have to deal with rejection. Okay.
I buy that.
And it's usually in that area where a person shows the most pride, that buried beneath that pride is a big hole of insecurity where they are fearful of rejection. Okay. I know people who are 7, 8, 9 figure executives who are deeply, deeply afraid of rejection. That's why they work so hard because they can't even fathom failure. And so, one of the things that I learned early on is that part of the reason why I was so driven to be good in sports was because I did not want to be rejected. I knew people would like me because I ran fast, jumped high, performed well. But without sports, I was afraid that they would not like me. So it created this like Michael Jordan type work ethic that enabled me to get a full ride scholarship to Central Michigan University because I was working so hard to avoid rejection. I always say this, when your identity is attached to your activity,
Mhm.
you make poor decisions.
That is well said, man.
It's well said,
Yeah.
and it was well lived.
Well, I think you're talking to a lot of guys out there because we identify who
Mhm.
we are with what we do, not who we are.
And that can be further from the truth.
Exactly, right? And you want to get to the core of I have my ideas of how you discover who you are at the core, but how do men disassociate with what they do? Maybe it's on the field, maybe it's on the battlefield if they're a warrior, maybe it's in an office, maybe it's
Yeah.
doing something. But how do we disassociate or separate the two?
You ready? I'm gonna give you an exercise that my mentor gave me. Just one. Okay. Start introducing yourself without telling people what your job is. When people ask, "Hey, what's up? What's your name? And tell me a little bit about yourself." "Oh, my name is such and such, and I do,
Do.
and I do, and I do." It is extremely hard. The first time I mentored, and this was after I kind of knew a little bit about some of this stuff. My mentor challenged me to do this, and I was like, I don't know what to say. I was at a loss for words because we get so used to telling people what we do because we're men and we're providers and we're waymakers and we're headhunters and we're lions that we somehow intertwined our identity with our activity. And so that's a practical thing people can do is to begin to introduce themselves and talk about themselves without mentioning what it is that they do.
So if someone asked you tell me a little bit about yourself, what do you say now?
I was hoping you wouldn't put me on the spot. I was like, just go to the next thing. I,
There was that
I
awkward pause
yeah,
there. Did you feel it? Because I did. Because you
yeah,
knew it was
yeah.
coming.
I did know it was coming. I was like, he's gonna ask me. So here's the thing. Okay. Um, I usually start with values, morals, things that I'm passionate about versus what I do from a workspace. So I don't tell people I'm a speaker coach or that I work for Second Chance Athletes. Like I don't mention that stuff. What I tell them is what I care about, what I like to do. Did you know I like to rap? Did
Gee,
Amber tell you that?
no.
Yeah, yeah. So I like to rap. It's a hobby of mine.
Okay.
It's something that I enjoy doing and I like it because it's a creative expression. it allows me to just vent my emotions. I'm not a diary person, but I'll write a rap. And sometimes when I'm stressed and I take work breaks, I will go and start freestyling just in the middle of work just to get through it. I want to be known for how I love and for how I give. Love is an action, but it's also part of my identity. It's who I am. It's not just what I do. Can love be shown through actions? Absolutely. But for me, love is a mindset that I have. I see everything in life through the lens of love. In fact, one of my favorite quotes that many people know, you probably heard it yourself, is from Marianne Williamson. And she says, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It's actually a lot longer than that. A lot of people know the quote, they don't know where it's from, they don't know the source. It comes from her book, A Return to Love. And if you ever read the book, it's actually a phenomenal read, but it's all about how love is the only thing that's real and fear doesn't exist. And it's an illusion. And so this love is part of my being and my essence. And so when I'm asked, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, I talk about the fact of what I love, what I enjoy, what I value. And those are the things that I talk about.
And what do you love, value, and enjoy? I mean,
Yeah.
besides rapping, which, by the way, hopefully before the end of the show, we'll get a sample of that.
Sure, man. I
Oh,
got you.
really?
I
Nice.
got you.
I love it, man.
Yeah, man. I gotta try to think of something now. People ask. It, w- it'll happen
It'll
organically. I'm not
happen.
gonna overthink it. So, one of the things that I love is authentic connections. You
Mhm.
probably noticed that when before we started recording this episode, like I was genuinely interested. I wasn't shooting the breeze. I wasn't small talking just to get on the podcast. I wasn't trying to, scrub all the contacts or anything like that. I was like genuinely interested in you, your life, and the way that we came to know one another. I love human connection. In fact, I love exploring connections with people who make me feel uncomfortable. And so that's one of the things that I love. That's one of the things that I enjoy. Another thing that I love, don't laugh at me. I love entertainment. I love going to the movies all by myself.
All
Did
by
I hit the
yourself.
note? Come on,
Okay.
Roger.
Okay.
Roger, I'm working on it. Roger's trying to get me right. Anyway, so I had to test that. I told you he's in my head, man. And so, anyways, I love going to the movies all by myself. In fact, for my 31st birthday, my wife's gift to me was movie passes, and I went to this float therapy, where you sit in this bubble that's just water and you. Because I just love being by myself. I'm introverted and I love entertainment. So that was my birthday. I was literally, my gift was that I don't want to be around anybody.
All right. Yeah. Do you know what I want for my birthday? I don't want to be around anyone, not even my family. Movie tickets.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
man.
That's who I am, man. That's who I am. And I love it. I love it.
Well, you know what? Here's the cool thing about what you just said. I think if you were to look at that introspectively without being as advanced as you are in your thought process, and you've obviously been mentored, you are a coach yourself, there could be a lot of guilt and shame associated with what you just said. But I think what's so important is know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Know thyself, and know thyself to the point where you can show up in your best, most authentic self when you are recharged.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm the same
Absolutely.
way. I get up at 4:05 every morning.
I'm
I don't
sorry.
know. I don't. Yeah, no.
I'm
I don't
just
know what's
kidding.
up with the 5-minute thing. Just 4 a.m. just sounds way too early.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I am the most selfish individual from 4:05 to 6:30 a.m.
Mm.
because like that's where I go to the gym. I put my AirPods in. I train. I sweat. I pray. I do all these things to help me gear up for the day. Very selfishly, I don't want anyone around. I am probably one of the most antisocial people in the gym. I actually had a guy who came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, are you the dad edge guy?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I didn't know if it was you or not because on the podcast, like you sound so positive, but you look so angry here all the time." Like, man, I'm not angry. I'm just antisocial here. That's all.
That's
But
hilarious.
come on. So
You gotta work on the face. I'm the same way, and people tell me, and it's this joke. They say my youngest daughter looks the most like me because she always has an attitude on her face.
okay.
And I'm like, I just don't, I'm just in my head. I'm
Yeah.
not thinking or paying attention to my surroundings. So it's not like I'm just walking around mad at the world. I'm just literally not thinking about y'all right now.
Right.
And they're like, man, are you mad? Are you angry? What's wrong? And I'm like,
Yeah.
stop asking me what's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I get it, man. But I tell you what, I don't like the word selfish. And I know that you were like making a point, and the point was valid. I just don't like it because it carries a negative energy. And I used to think that. I used to think like, man, I need to be a little bit more selfish. And it's not selfish. It's actually one of the most generous things in the world that you can do,
Agreed.
because you aren't able to give as much and make an impact as much if you don't take care of you.
Yep.
And so I don't even see it as being selfish. I see it as being wise. And
Agree, man.
wise carries a positive energy. Whereas selfish carries this negative energy. And I don't want to be doing something being like, this is my time to be selfish. Like, no, I never have a time where I'm carrying negative energy, hopefully. So this is my time where I'm operating in wisdom. I'm recharging. I'm valuing self. I'm taking inventory. I'm 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 working on me so I show up better in life and show up better for you. It's actually one of the most kind things in the world that I can do is take some
Agree.
me time.
Operating wisdom. I'm gonna remember that one too. This show's already full of good quotes. I love it, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, let's get back to rejection and projection.
Okay.
So I've been doing this work now for this is the 6th year podcasting, almost the 10th year doing this work of working with men, husbands, fathers. Rejection is something that comes up all the time. So it's
Hmm.
like, man, my wife won't talk to me. My
Hmm.
wife won't have sex with me. My kids
Hmm.
don't open up to me. My kids don't want to be around me. I don't really like the work that I do. I don't really interact with anybody. It's like literally, it's like our lives, it's almost like some of us, we're always it's almost like we're looking for it. Maybe not looking for it. That's the wrong word. Probably just watching out for it. Like we're cautious about it. So we're sensitive to it. But this whole thing of being rejected versus projected, give us the
Yeah.
differences there.
So projection has to do with someone else's inward insecurities, feelings, inadequacies, you name it. It's about their insecurities. It's not about what you lack. Okay. And that's an important distinction to make, because if you don't understand that oftentimes when we feel the emotion of rejection, it's actually a projection of that person's own inward brokenness, right? So I'll give you an example using what you just said. So your wife does not want to roll around in the bed and make babies. Okay. A lot of times we can take that as rejection. Oh man, there's something wrong with me. She don't like me. I'm not as fit as I used to be. My 275 has turned from muscle to fat. So that's why she rejected me. When in reality, it could be that she didn't feel sexually attractive. And so she didn't want to engage in sex. It had everything to do with her brokenness and nothing to do with me. You can apply that to sales. You can apply that to any type of business relationship. It applies to every area of life. And when you do that, it enables you to do two things. Number one, like not getting your feelings. like, like if you're in your feelings, you start personalizing everything, like like game over, right? Number two, it enables you to have way more compassion for people. Okay. Especially, in leadership. I remember starting out early because I started my leadership journey in nonprofit. And so the hardest leadership role is to get people to do stuff for free. No, like you can't, cut the paycheck or anything. And so oftentimes when people would not want to join my team or my movement or get behind my vision, I took that stuff personally. And now that I realized this projection dynamic, I'm like, man, did that person have a lot of self belief?
Mhm.
Oh, they didn't think they could do it. So I'm sitting here thinking they're not joining the movement because my vision casting isn't clear enough, or they don't like my leadership style, or something's wrong with me. When in reality, they just didn't have enough self belief to get behind something and believe in the bigger picture. So I actually was doing a good job. In fact, it was actually my vision that was tapping and touching on their insecure place, keeping them from joining it. If I would have aimed lower, they probably would have joined the movement. But the fact that I aimed high, it touched on their insecure place and it sent them away. Do you see the power? If I didn't understand projection, I would take that personally. I wouldn't pursue my dreams. I wouldn't think that I have what it takes. I'll get mad at them. Like, I'll think the world is against me. And then you know how that is. Your beliefs are the way you see the world. And so if I believe that people aren't for me, nobody's for me. And then you just start eliminating opportunities when in reality, that person just had some of their own stuff going on. So that is why it's important when you feel the emotion of rejection to process that moment of rejection and make a better conclusion. I always say this to people: unprocessed pain becomes ill processed pain. Okay. What we do, because we don't want to be emotional and we just want to be type A people and get things done. Listen, I'm telling you, I'm as type A as they get. I'm as high achieving as they get. I played Division I football. I came from a broke neighborhood. I rode my bike across the town and jumped over the hill and walked barefooted just to make things happen. So you can't out hustle me, but I value these emotions because it is the full spectrum of my being. And people who don't value emotion, they're missing out on part of their human expression. So, unprocessed pain becomes ill processed pain. One of the greatest things you can do is at the end of your day, look for the tension moments in your day and ask yourself, when I felt this emotion, why? Could it have been projection? Or could it have been the other side of it was protection? Am I getting rejected because something or someone is not meant to be in my life anymore or at this time? It's an important distinction to make. And the more we do that, the greater emotional intelligence we have to do life with.
Mm. What are the so go I want you to repeat or maybe even add to, because what I want to do here is I want to give men a very specific roadmap on
Yep.
the next time that they feel rejected, excluded, passed up on the promotion, maybe not dancing under the sheets or whatever with their wife, right? In some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's their kid that just won't talk to them, giving them one word answers. They feel that, oh God, I'm just not good enough. What are some simple steps that a guy can internally ask himself, or maybe it's the other person, to really understand if what the difference is there?
Yeah. So so it's really hard because I always tell people that there's like principles and then there's tactics. You're asking me for a tactic right now. So one of the questions is what I gave you is the why question. It's the most important. That can take on different forms. Why what are some reasons why she didn't want to have sex with me? What was going on in her life that maybe I wasn't aware of in the moment because that pain felt so real to me? Right? Like, what else happened in that person's day that could have contributed to this behavior? And was it them or was it me? And sometimes, more times than not, it's always the other person. But sometimes it is us. Maybe they say, I don't know why we're talking about sex so much. It's a guy show,
The
but
dude show.
what they say, intimacy starts in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, man.
So maybe the fact that you had the dirty house and your dirty underwear on the bed and like you just wanted to lay up, like maybe you could have like stepped your game up a little bit, bro. Like, maybe you needed to do some non-physical, or we call it non-sexual touch throughout the day and things like that. Like maybe you need to learn her love language. So I'm not trying to get us off the hook as men. I'm just trying to help us to live more emotional healthy, right? And in business, you know that's the one of the things they're valuing more is emotional intelligence, EQ over IQ now. That's how important this is. So for everybody who's just like, nah, man, I'm just gonna stick to the bottom line. I'm like, this is the bottom line. This helps you with the bottom line. In fact, Harvard will tell you that EQ is more valuable than IQ right now. And so EQ is on the rise. This is what we're talking about: emotional intelligence. And you can't have emotional intelligence if you don't sit and process the emotions. I'm being slow for a reason because I was talking to a guy the other day, and it's actually a mentee of mine. And I was telling him the same process. I said, sit down, analyze, ask the questions. Why did I feel this way? What was going on in my life? What was happening for this other person? Start making conclusions and things like that, like healthily process the situation. He was like, man, I ain't got time for that. And I was like, but you want this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal, don't you? Yeah. Well, you better make time for this. This is that. And that's one of the biggest challenges I face, man. And I tell you what, I have to serve it to. It's like getting my children to eat vegetables. Sometimes I got to mix it in a smoothie because they won't just eat broccoli, but they'll eat a strawberry shake with some mixed greens in there. It's the same way when we're having this emotional conversation with men. It's like, I don't want to, just give me the tactic. Give me the calculation. Give me the strategy. And I'm like, dude, this is the strategy. When you get this right, it becomes your superpower. Okay. And so sometimes I do this talk for corporations called the corporate athlete advantage. Everybody wants it, right? It's success, elite habits, success habits that elite athletes do, from what I've learned from the athletes I played against and from the athletes I've coached, right? Everybody wants it because it helps them make it to the bottom line. You know what I wrap in the middle of it? Mental health.
Nice.
I do this emotional stuff because it's that important. So I hope that's helpful.
Very, very helpful. I like how, see, I'm a big tactic guy. It's pretty obvious, right? Give me the ABCD, right? Versus like, but I like that. And I do agree with you. The having emotional intelligence is such a valuable skill, and it does not come naturally to people unless they're naturally an empathetic or an empath person, right? To where they can actually feel the feelings that someone else is really, really going through. How do you incorporate these types of things into your family, like raising three? Let's talk to the, and by the way,
Oh, I love this.
I'm so happy to hear, man. So happy to hear you have 3 girls. I have 4
Thank you.
boys.
Thank
The
you.
audience is shaking their head saying, yes, Larry, thank you. Lately, you've brought on more people who are better at raising girls.
Thank you.
Let's talk to emotional intelligence raising girls.
Oh my God. It's a master class.
Right.
Because as much as I'm talking all this stuff, now when you start getting to the girls, and okay, like whatever your feelings in is about like genders and all that stuff, I'm so sorry if I say something insensitive. Charge it to my head, not my heart. But we don't got a lot of time. So let's make sure that we get some value out of this. My girls are way like an emotional masterclass. Okay. I I still am learning how you can have a emotional breakdown for no reason. That one just hasn't. I haven't figured that one out yet. Like I, I remember it just happened this morning. In fact, my oldest daughter, she's 7. She came in our room. She's crying. Yeah, I'm like, okay, hungry, mad that the youngest is going to dick, like something. The doll's missing or something. Like there's a reason why you're crying. I'm like, what's wrong, sweetie? Right? Men are fixers. What's wrong, sweetie? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You have to know. You have to know. I can't fix it unless you know. And what it's teaching me is that sometimes you don't have to fix it and you don't even have to know why it's there. You just have to sit with it. And it's a part of being. And it's frustrating because I want to fix. And it's frustrating because I just still so wholeheartedly believe that from her bedroom to ours, something had to happen to make her come in there crying. But she had no real explanation other than that's what she was doing. That's one example of what it's like to raise women.
Well, let's flip the switch a little bit. All right.
Flip it.
What about your wife? What about our wives? How about that?
Though this is what's crazy about this story. Okay. My daughters are super emotional. I'm actually more emotional and moody than my wife is. Part of that is I do technically have a mental illness. Clinically, I'm diagnosed with depression, anxiety. I haven't been clinically diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I have ADHD and dyslexia as well. I found that out just by listening to people describe it. And I was like, I think that's me. But again, I'm the guy that talks about all this stuff. My wife is very type A. She's got her master's in organizational leadership. She's the detail oriented person. I don't know, man. She just don't got time for all of that. She's like she's a boss. And I'm like the guy that wants to talk and process. I'm way more talkative than my wife is. And so we switch in that regard. So she's easy. I'm the hard one.
Interesting. Now, does she have, what's her, I'm putting you on the spot here,
Come on.
but as far as like her EQ with you and her knowing that about you,
Yeah.
how does she go about
Terrible
dynamics? Okay.
Terrible. So we've been married for 7 years. The first 5.5 were complete misery. Okay. Per this conversation, now we had a lot of other stuff going on, but one of the things that she literally, I remember in a marriage counseling session we had one time, told the counselor that I was too needy.
That's what every man wants to hear, by the way.
Like, oh, he's too, I know. And exactly. I'm like, needy. I don't need you. like obviously
I don't even need to be here right now.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I did too. Wasn't healthy, but my point is she thought I was needy because I am emotional. What she interpreted as needy was really just the average emotional conversation. She just wasn't raised that way. And part of it is, and again, projection. Part of it was some stuff that she'd been through. My wife has never really, prior to me, been in a relationship where someone wanted her just for her. It's always been about sex. Okay. And so she didn't understand, like, why do you want me to sit here and process your decisions and your day and like all this stuff and talk about like this? And like, if I'm getting ready to go see her after this podcast and I'm going to talk to her about you, she's going to be, the old her would have been tired in like 2 minutes. Like, I don't care about this Larry guy and the connection you guys made and that whatever. She don't care about that. But now she realizes that like, hey, this is not emotion. This is not needy. This is just emotional. And I can be that. And so again, that's why it's important to have this intelligence. So that's just one thing that we had to work through for her to realize that I wasn't being needy. I was just being normal. And she had to actually grow to recognize that I wanted to connect with her emotionally in that way. The other thing too that we realized is that I have a lot of capacity for emotions as well. And podcasting has been huge to me. Podcasting, when I started hosting my own live show, changed our marriage. Isn't that crazy? Because I had so much in me that I needed to talk to a bunch of guests. Ask Amber, when we did my book launch, man, I was doing I did like 6 shows in one day one time, but I was definitely doing them multiple times a day for weeks on end to promote my book. And I wasn't dead. They thought, they're like, you're going to burn out. In fact, she sent me a video, said, you're going to crash after this. I'm like, I'm not going to crash. That's how much is in me. I was trying to get my wife to fulfill all that need. When in reality, it needed to be shared amongst Larry and the other podcast I did earlier today and the other person I talked to earlier at lunch. And then by the time I get to her, I've drained some of that emotion.
Right. And you've got like probably, $1,000 in AMC gift cards to go watch a movie.
Correct.
Correct. Go recharge right after that.
Exactly.
You good?
Yeah.
You good?
Go recharge and then talk to other people about emotions.
I love it, man. Well,
give me the high level stuff.
As we wrap up here, I know you have a new book out now.
Yeah.
And I know your new book is really geared towards athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but there's, I know, knowing what I know about you now, there's life lessons in there that are really, really valuable for just the guy who's driving to work right now, listening to this podcast in his car. Right. So share with us the title of your new book and what readers can expect.
Yeah. The book is called Who Am I After Sports? An Athlete's Roadmap to Discover New Purpose and Live Fulfilled. It's for athletes who are trying to figure out what's next for them or anybody who's in a season of transition. Okay. The book is divided up in this way. The first chapter starts with what happened. And I talk about the scene where I was laying on the psychiatric unit bed, screaming at the doctor to leave me alone because I just wanted to die. What happened was that my dream got taken away from me. And then I walk people through my 5-step athlete transition roadmap: accept, believe, discover, pursue, persist. Okay. The last chapter is called What Really Happened. And it's when I tell you what really happened in the psychiatric unit. And you have to go get the book to figure out what really happened.
Is it hard writing about that?
Extremely hard. It was the most healing thing I ever had to do. I literally multiple times was writing, probably getting ready to short circuit my keyboard.
I can only imagine, man.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's a tall order. It's one thing to put yourself out there. And I know I'm gearing up to write my 4th book right now. I'm actually, I cranked out 3,500 words in the past 2 days. It's just flowing. But what I can tell you is like, as the writer, right? I think a lot of people don't really know this. As the writer, whatever it is you're writing about, especially if it's, something that was difficult, something that might even be traumatic, something that's difficult to, even something so personal that you're like, man, my kids might read this. Yeah, like you're really putting yourself out there, but you're also reliving all of those things. And you're right. There is something very healing about sharing something very, very personal. Like my wife, I'll give you a quick example. I wrote a book called The Dad Edge in 2014. And I wrote 8 chapters. It was about patience. It was about connection with your wife, your kids, the whole 9 yards. Very simple stuff. And I gave the book to my editor. And it was about a week after a huge event in our lives. My wife and I lost a son at 22 weeks. And it was one of the most brutal things I've ever been through.
Wow.
And so much so that I didn't really even want to talk about it with people. And my editor handed me over the first manuscript. He's like, "This is good. Very simple, straightforward. It's written for a man, He's like, "But it needs one more chapter." I was like, "What's that?" He goes, "You need to write about what you just went through." I was like, "You're crazy. I'm not doing that. There's no way." He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "But here's the thing. You given 8 chapters how to help a man get through the simple stuff. You haven't taught him how to get him through the hard stuff. So you got to talk about that." And dude, that one last chapter took me 90 days to write because I couldn't do it all in one fell swoop. It was brutal to relive all that in detail, but the most healing thing I've ever done. So I agree with you. And the cool thing too, I don't know if you've experienced this. I'm sure you have. People who have read the book, they reference one chapter. And that last chapter, dude, that last chapter is what really got me.
Yeah.
So, things like that, someone else's pain can be someone else's safety net reading it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's a ton of stuff in here about discovering your purpose. There's success habit stuff in here. So, I mean, it's not all emotional masterclass, but the first 2 chapters are definitely the ones that are heavy like that and did all that healing. So yeah, man, there's one thing I just want to leave the audience with, and it's this, and because I know we got a lot of men, and I just want to tell every person that's listening that you're enough. And one of the greatest tests of your mental and emotional health is solitude.
Mhm.
Are you okay being alone? Are you
Without your
okay
device.
doing nothing?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to sit there and do that. If everyone left you, would you still be okay? That's a real visualization test to see where you're at emotionally and mentally. And I know that a lot of people struggle with that insecurity. And I just wanted to leave with that final thought that you truly are enough to be everything you were destined to be and to do everything you know in your heart you can do. And so whether people reject you, follow you, like you, retweet you, buy from you, it's not the question. Happiness is an inside job.
You know, oh man, I was going to ask you a question, and I've never been able to ask this question after the answer has already been given. But lately I've been asking this one question. And I really, really, I'm fascinated by the answers. How long ago did this event take place?
This 2000 and my suicide attempts,
Yes.
2012.
Okay. So that was 9 years ago, before kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if you were to have dinner with yourself back in 2012
Mm-hmm.
and you were literally looking at yourself eye to eye, as you are right now, with that man who is going through that back then, and you would have said the exact same words that you just said to me to that man? Tell me what's going through your mind right now.
You are more than what you see, is what I would have told myself then. I was had so much doubt in self, so much hatred of self. I had reached the top of an industry. 2% people make it to that level, and I was the cream of that crop. And to start from scratch when you don't think that you've got anything else to offer, uh, was messed up. And I did not see who I was, because sometimes it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. And it takes outside voices like you, this podcast, mentors, speakers, to see in you what you struggle to see in yourself. And so I would have looked myself in the eye and say, you are more than what you see. Borrow my belief in you, even if you don't have belief in yourself.
That, my friend, super powerful stuff. And seriously, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for sharing everything you did about rejection, all about your upbringing, what that was like for you, as well as what it's like raising young women, and the emotional space you have to create when you're raising daughters, right? Plus the differences between rejection and projection. And of course, the home run in the last 10 minutes, man. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing everything about you.
Appreciate it, man. You're welcome. And thanks for having me.
You bet, man. I just want to make sure the audience knows where to find you. So where is the best place for them to connect with you, your book, your resources, everything else?
DarryllStinson.com, DARRYLL. And I'm sure it's in the links and all that stuff.
Dude, you got that. You got that spelling, man, down to a science. I'm telling you. Guys, don't even worry about it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have all of Darryll's social media, all his new book, website, the whole 9 yards. Just go to gooddadproject.com/Thursday 263 for this show. Again, gooddadproject.com/Thursday 263. Darryll, you are a blessing, my friend. Huge fan of you, and honor you for coming on the show, man.
Gracias.
De nada.